Hey, this is Dustin Gower back with some more video. Okay, so I just learned from, thanks to journalism, that we can send stamps for just 2 cents. 2 cents instead of 55 cents. That being said, let's see what Jaron has to say about it.
I learned that will surely help me save some money, and perhaps I can save you a few bucks as well. Many people consider snail mail antiquated, but I still use it, and many of you might still use it to send birthday cards, or Christmas cards perhaps, or even just letters to family and friends, or even postcards from places that you visit or vacation to. Currently in the United States, the price we are told is 55 cents per letter and 35 cents per postcard. Well, I'm about to show you how to send a letter or postcard for only 2 cents. But before we get started, let me just give you a few disclaimers here. First, this only works in the United States, so if you're in another country, I don't know their laws, and this video will not be very helpful to you. Also, I wouldn't send anything important or time-sensitive, like checks or important documents. I wouldn't use this method for those types of mailings either. And lastly, it is not for commercial use, it is only for personal use. So for sending to a friend or family member, something like that. Also, this will not work if you're trying to send something to a government agency. So if you're trying to send something to a jail or possibly the Social Security office, I would not use this method to mail anything to any government agency such as those. Alright, so let's get started on how to mail a letter for only 2 cents. So this all started when I began posting my P.O. box, and I received quite a few letters, but one in particular stuck out. It was a letter from a man, Ted.
Okay, now before we get on to this, look at the, if you look on the letter, you'll have a 2-cent stamp, and then this General Post Office, non-domestic, zip extent, without the U.S. Now let's keep going here. Talk about that a little bit later.
Eldon, and you'll notice something weird about this letter in the upper right hand corner. I saw a 2-cent stamp. I said, how did I get this mail? So I did contact Ted. I sent him an email and asked him, hey, what's going on?
Let's get back to the more, let's skip that a little bit, because I want to get to the part where he explains. You know what?
Listening to are linked in the description, but here's the first one I found, and we'll listen to a small clip.
However, you can send a letter non-domestically without the United States, not in the federal zone. They're tricking you.
It was the description of this video that actually had the most information of any of the other videos we'll watch. In it, you can see it says take an envelope, place a letter inside, place a 3-cent stamp on it, address it to somewhere outside of the United States, which means any of the 50 states and not in Washington, D.C., any military base, any federal zone, and he says no zip codes. He then gives us a few examples, which are very helpful. And the hugely helpful thing here, and we'll come back to this, is he puts the Congress session of the law in his description. If we go down a little bit further, it says, why is this important? Well, because this will prove to the naysayers a bunch of things. Number 1, that the zip code makes your address a federal zone. Number 2, that the 2-letter abbreviation is seen as a federal state. 3, that the post office is a corporation and is tricking the average American into using, at this time, 55-cent stamps when only a 3-cent stamp is required. Also, I believe it's 2 cents. I'll show you that here shortly. That all 50 states are without the United States, and that common knowledge of the government is often misunderstood. And lastly, that the United States can mean the federal government. Now, this particular gentleman said that we should also write the exact Congress session on any letter we send this way, and that's up to you.
You can pause this and do whatever you need to if you need to. Record that. I will also leave that in my description as well. First class non-domestic. Okay. I have that written down. Okay,
I didn't do it when I tested this method, but it doesn't hurt to include it because possibly a postmaster or post person may not know this exact law. so help them out. But now with this Congress info, I went to see what law we are invoking. So I searched Chapter 71, Section 23 of the 37th Congress, Session 111, and found a document labeled An Act to Amend the Laws Relating to the Post Office Departments. All right, great. A PDF from the Library of Congress, and all of these documents are in the description, so you can click those if you want to check them out yourself. So I started scanning this particular document looking for Section 23, and I was having a tough time. The document seemed to skip. So upon further examination, I noticed that the document is actually missing pages. If you see here, page 701 ends with a hyphenated word post, and the next page starts with shall, which doesn't fit the previous page at all. A little closer look, and I realized that this document goes from page 701 to 709, skipping pages 702 to 708. Very interesting. So I had to do a little more searching, and finally found the entire document for the 37th Congress, which is actually a 577-page PDF, but it was now easy because I could go right to the missing pages of 702 to 708, and there it was, Section 23. Let's read it. It states, "And it be further enacted that the rate of postage on all letters not transmitted through the mails of the United States, but delivered through the post office or its carriers, commonly described as local or drop letters, and not exceeding 1/2 ounce in weight, shall be uniform at 2 cents, and an additional rate for each 1/2 ounce or fraction thereof of additional weight, to be in all cases prepaid by postage stamps affixed to the envelope of such letter, but no extra postage or carrier's fee shall hereafter be charged or collected upon letters delivered by carriers, nor upon letters collected by them for mailing or for delivery." So, that was the end of Section 23. Now, there's a lot more to read. You can read all of this document if you want. There's tons of stuff in here, but that is the particular law that we are invoking. So let's continue. At this point, I was a little bit confused because I thought the USPS was the post office, and to me, I've always thought that the USPS was a government agency. Well, I found out that the post office was, but not the USPS. I then realized why, when the government shut down, why the mail did not. You'll see here that the USPS is an independent agency, and that something happened in 1970 called the Postal Reorganization Act, and that in that act, the USPS became an independent agency. So we're going to follow this now to the Postal Reorganization Act, signed by Tricky Dick Nixon in 1970, and we find some hocus pocus is at play. In 1970, Congress abolished the United States Post Office, which is one of the few government agencies explicitly authorized by the U.S. Constitution. So how was it abolished? Well, it created the USPS, a corporation-like independent agency with an official monopoly on the delivery of mail in the United States. Let's read. "The United States Postal Service shall be operated as a basic and fundamental service provided to the people of the government of the United States, authorized by the Constitution, created by act of Congress, and supported by the people. The Postal Service shall have as its basic function the obligation to provide postal services to bind the nation together through the personal, educational, literary, and business correspondence of the people. It shall provide prompt, reliable, and efficient services to patrons in all areas, and shall render postal services to all communities. The cost of establishing and maintaining the postal service shall not be appointed to impair the overall value of such service to the people." You'll also notice a little bit further down it says the Postal Reorganization Act exempts the USPS from the Freedom of Information Act, disclosure of information of a commercial nature, including trade secrets, whether or not obtained from a person outside the Postal Service, which under good business practice would not be publicly disclosed. So in 1970, the executive branch piece of the post office ceased to exist, but the duties and obligations were taken over by the USPS, which is now a private organization, a government regulator.
Now, knowing that it's a private organization, that makes me wonder for you and me, whoever's watching this, that makes me wonder if it's actually a public place or not, being a private organization. Meaning, I wonder if they say when the people in the post office say it's not public, I wonder if they're actually telling the truth, or is it still a public place? Makes me wonder.
Regulated monopoly. So then I realized that the post office employees are union workers. They work for a private business, the USPS, a for-profit corporation with a government-regulated monopoly, and they still have to deliver mail that is addressed the old way for the same price. So when you choose to send mail the way we do now, with the
Okay, so I'm going to stop here right now. And the reason why is because I only have 15 minutes to record in one video because I can't afford the paid version of this recorder. So for you guys, I know that kind of things. I can't afford the paid version or the better screen recorder. I know there are free ones that do that, but that counts. There's always a catch. So I'll let the mail. Okay, so with them being mean workers and all that, for those that are auditors, that makes me wonder if the post office is actually a public place or is it a private business? Just makes me wonder. Yet again, it's government regulated, so I don't know. But you can send a stamp for 2 cents.
Abbreviated state, and with the zip code, what you're actually doing is you're authorizing that additional price. You're saying, I choose to use the USPS for their prices to send my mail. However, we just saw that Congress has already said what the United States Post Office is responsible for and the price that we are to pay for letters. So guess what? We can still pay that price. Let's continue. So, the post office still exists within the USPS. You just have to know how to address your mail. So now we're going to see a couple people talking about it. They're going to tell us about sending non-domestic versus
I'm going to
domestic.
skip ahead of that.
The geographical United States versus
value that you could mail.
when you scroll down to the comments, you'll see somebody from just 4 months ago who says, just sent a letter from Cali to Texas for 3 cents. It works. But let's listen to this guy talk about it for a little bit.
You use the U.S. Post Office, not the United States Postal Service. They're two different entities. The U.S. Post Office was created by Congress as mandated by the original Constitution. In the 1960s,
So the idea here is to mail something not within the 50 states as a whole, but you're mailing something from one state to another state that has nothing to do with the government.
All right, so enough background
You guys
now.
heard that right? You're not mailing something from the United States to the United States. Like you said, you're mailing it from one individual state to another individual state. You don't need the zip code, and you do not need the abbreviated state name. And you still need to write out the state name, but not abbreviated.
I'll tell you how to address your mail so that you can use this constitutionally assigned post office and not the corporation-like private business, the USPS, which will be happy to take your 55 cents per letter, but also must deliver mail that follows the rules of mailing non-domestically. So I've already tried this and it works. First thing I did was bought some 2-cent stamps that cost 40 cents for a sheet of 20. I got them at the post office counter. I then wrote a letter to myself from my P.O. box and dropped it in the blue mailbox outside the post office, and it got to my house 1 day later. I then called a friend, David Weiss, and told him about it, to which he said, that's absolute bullshit. I said, okay, well, I'll send one to you too, and why don't you check your mail in a few days? Then 3 days later, I got a text from him showing my letter on his counter. Obviously, it got from California to Connecticut for 2 cents. So, how to address your letter or postcard correctly. First thing you want to do when you mail a letter or a postcard, you are mailing within the government territory if you use a zip code or an abbreviated state. So remember, you are invoking something that has always been there. Someone just didn't want you to know. The General Post Office still exists and makes sure letters go from point A to point B, but you cannot use a zip code. I write on mine zip exempt, so you might want to.
So zip exempt, and always write out the state name. Do not. Don't abbreviate it. With that being said, hopefully it'll save you guys some money as well as a lot more people. With all that being said, like, share, subscribe, or don't. I am